When asked to describe the people of Ecuador, German explorer and geographer Alexander von Humboldt said Ecuadorians are rare and unique beings who sleep peacefully surrounded by roaring volcanoes, live poorly in the midst of incomparable richness, and rejoice with sad music. In this project, I set out to a country that sits right on the line that splits the world in two. A small nation with some huge personality, from its sprawling volcanic landscapes to its varied cuisine. As well as one peak that holds the distinction of being the furthest point from the center of the Earth. My goal was to stand at the single closest point on Earth to the sun. This is Quito, Ecuador. I've spent the last few years of my life traveling the globe in search of the next high peak, and in the process experiencing all the cultures, all the unique people, and all the weird food traditions that I can. And in November 2024, I chose Ecuador for my next destination for two reasons. One, I love South America and was looking for any reason to go back, and a growing YouTube channel felt like a great excuse. And the second reason is my obsession with high points. Chimborazo isn't just the highest point in the country, but its location along the equatorial bulge actually makes it the furthest point on Earth that you can stand from its core. I love South America. It just has a certain vibe, where you expect the stray dogs trotting around like they own the place, the people bursting with energy, and the kind of street food that makes you question every meal you've ever had before. It's like a non-stop celebration, where even the chaos feels charming. And compared to the endless corporate grind of the US, everything and everyone here just feels so refreshingly real. Laying in a valley on the eastern slope of the Pichincha volcano, Quito is the oldest capital city in South America. Sitting at 9,250 feet, it's one of the highest capital cities in the world. And my plan was to acclimate here for a few nights before tackling the mighty Chimborazo.
Alright, so just arrived in Quito. Got out of the airport maybe like an hour and a half ago. Really nice place called the Casa Gardenia. One interesting thing is that I guess they're going through some sort of energy emergency is what the hotel front desk guy was telling me. So but there's like a bunch of dark parts of the city right now. And I guess between like midnight and 6 that's gonna happen for here too. Overall, super beautiful place. Super cool location. For $100, like, come on, this is crazy. I mean, my first impressions of Ecuador is it's pretty great. This is awesome.
The energy crisis in Quito was definitely a thing and left many people unstable and without work. But ultimately for me, it only meant that I couldn't charge my phone for a few hours during the night, so it was fine. Didn't really have much to complain about myself. I took that time to explore the historic district a bit and look for food.
All right, so it's just after 10 p.m. here, local time, Quito, Ecuador. Like, there's dudes in full military gear all around, like whole sections blocked off. I think because they're planning on shutting down the power in this quadrant here pretty soon, like in the next couple hours, that some like real martial law stuff going on over here.
The only thing still open that I could find was a KFC, because of course, chicken fried southern goodness transcends all borders. The day after arrival, I got my first good look at the city. Its sprawling volcanic landscapes apparent even through the thick cloudy weather. I stayed in the historic district, which I loved for its architecture. I was greeted by wandering canines rambling through the streets and other canines hiding in interesting places. Just looking down the road from my hotel stood the Virgen de El Panecillo, gracefully watching over the vibrant town, one of the highest statues on the continent. I went then to check out the Basilica del Voto de Nacional, or the Basilica of the National Vow, a wonder of sacred neo-Gothic architecture, and a church that was partially paid for by taxing salt, an interesting fact. They say that once it's finally finished, it will usher in the end of the world itself. Fire, chaos, and the doom of all mankind. But hey, until then, it's got some killer souvenir shops. There was a richness about Quito that I can't quite explain. It's vast, and there seemed to always be some level of activity going on. I also just found it super aesthetic in its own unique way.
Alright, so day one of Quito, and I think I've finally devised at least a concept of a plan where today I'm just gonna kind of walk around, explore the area, try some food, just for me to acclimate for the day. Because we're at like 10,000 feet. It's far higher than back home in Bend, which is only like 3,500. So try some street food, do all the fun stuff. And then I think tomorrow the plan is to go up to Pinchincha Mountain, which is a 15,000 foot day hike. And that'll be some good prep for Chimborazo. Man, the weather is not looking that fantastic though. Today it's not bad. There's like some blue in the sky, but it's looking pretty cloudy over the next few days. A little rainy, some precip. For Chimborazo, that could always lead to avalanche danger, but fingers crossed.
Besides the landscapes, my favorite aspect of traveling to foreign places is experiencing their foreign food.
Man, Ecuadorians love their KFCs. I did not expect so many luxurious KFCs per square foot in Quito. But it's cool. I've been to 2 of them now. So right now I'm on the way to go track down this monument that marks the actual equator. Which, by the way, for those who didn't know, Ecuador, Equator, it literally is what it translates to. We're in the country named Equator.
The Mitad del Mundo marks the exact location of the Earth's equator, the yellow line along the pavement dividing the 2 hemispheres. Inside the monument was a museum with exhibitions of Ecuadorian culture. Featuring exhibits of ancient landscapes, timeless fashion statements, and the original unplugged musical instruments. And up top, some 360 views of the Pinchincha region. There's also the famous egg balancing act that I've heard is basically debunked, so I skipped that, and the risk of looking like an idiot staring at an egg. All throughout the area, there were historic replicas of native homes and gathering spots, really making for a cinematic experience before going to explore more of the nearby city. More street food stands, more shops, more dogs, and of course more KFCs.
Have made it to the haunted section of this KFC. Creepy.
Also, a weirdly awesome amount of Dragon Ball Z figurines. Seriously, this wasn't the only shop that had these, they were everywhere. The next 2 days actually encompass the mountain climbing portion of this trip, which I'm gonna save for part 2 of this video, so everything else here was actually filmed after returning from the short expedition. I spent one night checking out some of the nightlife. A local friend that I'd met invited me out to a hostel and bar called the Secret Garden, a truly sick spot with epic views on the rooftop of all of Quito, and a crazy interior with all kinds of plants and graffiti art. It really was one of the most lively nights of the trip. While I didn't film a lot past this point, believe me when I say that I was very hungover the next day, in which I explored even more of the city, sweating out the previous night's toxins with some cardio and beautiful views. I would argue that one of the best views of the city that you can get is from the top of El Penecillo, the hill that divides central and southern Quito. On top is the iconic Madonna, the Virgin of El Penecillo, gracefully overlooking the historic region. The last couple days of my Quito excursion were non-stop as they were filled with parades, protests, and even some cultural festivals. There was so much going on at all times that I just kept getting lost in it all. On one corner, there was a sea of blues and yellows for one of the local schools, and then down the street, there was a sea of food vendors, and then down a bit further, a full-on musical performance for some kind of cultural festival. And between all that, lines of police on the lookout for citizens protesting the then current president. It was crazy. Despite only staying in Quito for a total of 5 days, I did get a bit emotional at the thought of having to leave. Everyone from the hotel staff to the restaurant waiters to even the taxi and Uber drivers just had a certain charm and spirit that was contagious. On my last night, I checked out this parade and then went off to find some local bevs and cuisine that I hadn't checked out yet. I kept walking past lines of people waiting to buy this yellow beverage served in reused water bottles, so I finally stopped to see what all the fuss was about. And that was my first experience with canelazo.
Just waited in line to try some of this yellow juice stuff that everyone seems to be loving out.
Well, very like cinnamony, I would describe it as. I think there's alcohol in it. I think there is. It's good, I get it. Yeah, very cinnamony.
Canelazo is a drink native to the highlands of the Andes, not just in Ecuador, but also Colombia, Peru, and northern Argentina. It's traditionally made by boiling water and cinnamon, sugar, as well as homemade alcohol known locally as aguardiente. You will need naranja fruit specifically though if you want to make it right. After getting a slight buzz, I needed some food to pair it with, so I stopped to buy one of the best hot dogs of my life and a pincho skewer with steak, potatoes, and cooked bananas, topped with a sauce unknown to me, but it absolutely hit, dude. My final detour before flying back off to the States was a walk down La Ronda, a street filled with epic nightlife and clubs that I wanted so bad to boogie in, but instead just soaked in the vibes and called it a night. And thus concluded my Quito experience. Few cities have kept me this entertained, surprised, and well-fed, and Quito did it all with style. In part 2 of this South American adventure, we go up both Pinchicha Peak right outside of Quito, and then the big one, Chimborazo, the highest point in the country and the closest mountain to the sun. Stay tuned.